This is the Becker County Museum Roadshow, and we're going to continue hearing stories from George Peters, and this time on the Vietnam War. Now, that was a long conflict.
Well, it was long, and there's a lot of reminders taking place right now with Iraq and Afghanistan in relationship to Vietnam. But what happened was I went back in the service and decided to make a career of it. And in 1963, I made my first trip to Vietnam. There were Americans in Vietnam in 1958, 59, and 60. Very small group, and they were advising Diem, who was the president in Vietnam at the time, and trying to support and train the Vietnamese Army. However, in 1963, when I went, was the first time we brought helicopters into Vietnam. And I went in as a door gunner on a helicopter. And our mission at the time was to support the aviation companies with infantrymen who could fire the weapons and do the thing. Our job was to put a radio relay station on Nui Ba Dinh. Now, most Americans have no idea that the American soldiers were in Vietnam in 1958, and especially in 1963. Our first war casualty was in 1963.
Okay.
And it was a young helicopter crewman that was killed. At that time, we were basically fighting guerrilla warfare against what we called Charlie, nicknamed him Charlie, and they wore black pajamas and soft hats and that stuff. And Nui Ba Dinh was really interesting because Charlie owned the bottom of the mountain, and we owned the top of the mountain. And we sort of had a gentleman's agreement. You leave us alone, and we'll leave you alone. And we established radio relay stations for the security agencies to do their intelligence work because it was the highest point in South Vietnam at the time. And that tour, albeit a short tour, was my first trip to Vietnam. I went back again in 1965, and I went back again in 1969.
And so, you have all these interesting things. They look homemade. You made them?
No, the villagers taught us how to make them. We worked with the villagers up in the Central Highlands, up in a place called Bami Tuat, which was labeled with the Special Forces A camp up there, the home of the Dirty Dozen. And we would do incursions into Cambodia and work the geographical lines. But it was often difficult to get resupplied, and all resupplies basically to us were by helicopter. When the weather would set in or the demand was somewhere else, we'd have to make it on our own. This here is a lizard trap.
You ate lizards, or what did you do?
We ate lizards, lots of lizards, and they were very, very delicious.
Really? Did you roast them?
Yeah, we roasted them and we cooked them over open fire, but we also painted a couple of them yellow and presented them to an outfit, 14th Infantry Golden Dragons, as a small dragon. But this would be placed next to the lizard hole, and the lizard would come out, look around, and of course stick his head in there, and it would spring and trap them, and it would keep them alive so the meat wouldn't spoil. And then we could take them out of the trap and put them in our rucksack.
Looks like you got caught too.
Yeah, well, I get caught a lot. But that's a lizard trap. And this, believe it or not, was taken from a woman that tried to kill us, of course, in the war. And it's a blowgun. And they would dip the darts in human waste and then place the dart into the tip of the blowgun. And this would be soaked in water, so it would be swollen and tight, and then when they sighted on their target, they would just, and it would shoot the dart out, and you wouldn't hear anything, and the dart would hit you and cause blood infection, blood poisoning, and blood infection very bad. The same methodology as the dart was used on the punji stakes in the ground.
And punji stakes?
Punji stakes were bamboo stakes cut with a sharp edge, and they were dipped in human waste, and they would put one person out in a field, on the edge of a field, but they would have punji stakes all over the field waiting for helicopters to come in. When the helicopter come in, that one person would shoot. And the first thing the American soldiers trained to do was to hit the ground and protect themselves. When they hit the ground, they would land on punji stakes. or they would jump out of the helicopter and get hit in the
Bad
foot.
wound.
Again, blood poisoning. These are just tools that we made out of bamboo. I call them survival tools.
Sure.
And one of the things that I really learned in Vietnam, because I was a little older,
Yeah.
most American people don't understand war at all. And they say, oh, it's terrible, and all they see is what they see on the screen. Yeah. You turn into an animal, Carol, you survive. And the adage or the term that is used in the groups that I served with, small 8-man units, 12-man units out in the jungle all alone, was that you kill or be killed. And that's what you do. And that's what you're trained to do. And it's not right, but that's what you do. And one of the things that I've learned now that I'm older is I carry that stuff with me now. And
you will survive.
Many things happen that cause you to lay in bed awake at night and have bad dreams and bad nightmares. And we're talking 50 years ago, and I can see faces, I can see body bags I zipped. It never goes away.
Never goes away.
And what we're facing is the same type of war, dirty with the IEDs, but dirty with the booby traps, dirty with the punji stakes, those type of things. And the folks that are coming home, we cannot ever, ever let them be treated the way the Vietnam veteran was treated. We were treated like dirt.
Isn't that sad?
And the part that caused a lot of that was the protesters that were against the war and did not support the troops in Vietnam, the protesters that are against the Iraq war, whether we like to hear it or not, are not supporting the troops in Iraq, and that's the feeling they get. So when these folks come home, we need to hug them, we need to take care of them. Now, what caused that difference? What caused that difference is, in the Iraq war, we've taken the National Guard and Reserve out of our communities.
Yes.
We've taken groups of people and displaced families, and the Guard and the Reserve were never trained for what they're doing, but we take out these big units so the community feels the impact and they get behind them. During the Vietnam War and the Korean War, it was young soldiers like me and your husband and others, 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 from Becker County went, or 20 or whatever, but they were unknown to the whole community, so the community didn't get behind them.
Yeah.
Now, when you came home from Vietnam, Carolyn, you arrived home the day before you left Vietnam because you crossed the international date line.
Oh.
So you got home actually the day before you left Vietnam, and you didn't get a wind-down period.
Okay.
And you might have been out fighting last night, picked up in a helicopter, taken to the airport, and flown home. The unwinding, the family support groups they're establishing today for the Iraq veteran is the most wonderful thing in the world. And,
thank you
You're
for
welcome.
sharing. It's always so interesting. It must be a history buff or something.
Well,
but thank you.